Welcome back to the Merge at the North American Blockchain Summit. Today we have with us Carla Reyes. She's an associate professor of law at SMU's Dedman School. Welcome. Thanks for being on the Merge.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really nice to be here.
That's great. Thanks.
So you are here. So did you catch Vivek's talk earlier?
I did, yeah.
Any thoughts? Any interesting?
I appreciated his remarks very much. I appreciate the focus on privacy and the discussion about sort of the overreach of the anti-money laundering rules. I have particular concerns around the NPRM related to Section 311 and crypto mixers, for example.
Right.
And I've been following the Van Loon v. OFAC case quite closely. So I appreciated those remarks.
Right.
Yeah.
So you teach. So what do you teach? You teach blockchain specifically at SMU, or is that just like one of the things that you teach within the realm of technology?
Yeah, I teach a class called Blockchain Law and Policy.
Okay.
I also teach...
Which school are you at there?
I'm at the law school.
Okay.
I'm a law professor, the Dedman School of Law, and I teach Blockchain Law and Policy. I teach secured transactions.
Okay.
I teach business enterprises, and I teach a class on artificial intelligence law.
Great. Yeah. So I used to guest lecture with Alan Gwynn over in the Cox School of Business.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun over there. You got this interesting student. So like, what's interesting student body there? What's the engagement level on blockchain now? It used to be like I would get a few people straggle in. Yeah. I was tagging in on a IT and business class, and they would just have one session on blockchain. So It's interesting to see that they've kind of expanded over the years. I know
Simon Mack.
Yeah, I was struggling on the name. Yeah, Simon Mack you've done a lot with that over there too.
Yeah, Simon Mack at the Cox School. I think Joseph Camp at engineering has a engineering focused class for blockchain. And then Eva Chasky, who's at the Lau School of Engineering, the Hunt Institute for Humanity. We actually have a joint research project thinking about decentralized autonomous organizations and how sort of rural agricultural, like smaller farmers might use the power of decentralized autonomous organizations to scale up their businesses and grow their networks, which is a really interesting application of that, and requires some thoughts on the engineering side about like how does that happen exactly.
Right.
So it's been a really interesting collaboration.
It's great. So yeah, we're for those that haven't looked at the program schedule for the event. We are going to both be on a DAO panel tomorrow talking about this with Mark Schutt, also from the network, and the guys from ATX DAO.
Yeah.
So what kind of thoughts are you bringing to the table? You come from a legal background. What is your opinions on, I've seen all over the spectrum in terms of a DAO's interaction with like kind of traditional business structures. Some say you should wrap the DAO in a business structure, and some say it should be the other way around. The DAO should employ a business structure. What do you think is a kind of a best practice for an American-based company?
So I've been writing about the intersection of DAOs and business law since 2018. So the first paper was If Rockefeller Were a Coder, where I pointed out that maybe I was the first to point out, I'm not sure, but I pointed out that if DAOs do nothing, it's quite likely that a court, whether appropriately or not, a court might find that the DAO is a general partnership.
Right.
And I argue like that is not a good fit for DAOs for a variety of reasons, even if that's what the law might arguably say, that for policy reasons and otherwise it's not super awesome, right, for the members of DAOs. And so I argued back then, and I continue to argue in a variety of other papers along the way, and even still I've got new research on the same type of topic, that if members of DAOs were smart, they would lean into contract-based business organizations that allow them to structure the organization like as a mere object of the code that they use to mediate their interactions with each other. Because ultimately, like in business law theory, that's what a corporation is. That's what the LLC is. It is an intermediating tool. Like it's a technology, really, that allows people to interact with each other for a common purpose, right? So if you're using the technology to do that instead, arguably, and that's where most DAO participants come from, like, now we don't need the business structure because the technology is doing that for us.
Right.
But the law and the courts, and now, as we see in the CFTC and the court in the Van Loon v. OFAC case, right? They don't see it that way.
Right.
And so to sort of protect yourself and keep your priorities the same for the the legal side as they are for the code side. I've long argued and continue to argue that you can do that through contract and be very business forms other than the corporation are quite flexible. And you can do it through contract, and you should do it through contract in order to protect yourself from, being the tornado cash DAO, whatever that is, right? Or the way that the CFTC said the Unki DAO was put together, right? If you just hold a token, like what? No. So anyway, that's what I think. And I do think that there are creative sort of legal engineering that can be done if you have the right lawyer. And if that lawyer knows how to work well with the developers to make the code and the contract match. They might not be the same thing. They can be. They could even interact, right? The paper contract, legal contract could even interact with the terms, the code provisions for the DAO. But anyway, it takes creativity to do that and the right kind of lawyer.
So how do you then reconcile kind of the cypherpunk anti-KYC sentiment of most crypto DAOs with the idea that you'd have to register a business?
So that's why I like the contract-based versions. So if Rockefeller were a coder, I recognize that DAOs don't want to register with state and that really it's not that necessary for them to do what they want to do. And so the idea of the If Rockefeller Were a Coder paper is that in about half the states still recognize the business trust form at common law via contract. And so literally all you have to do is have a contract that says we're a business trust and ta-da, and then the liability is different for personal liability is different and it's just a different form. That's the idea of the unincorporated nonprofit association, I think, as well, that's been pushed, I think, by the folks at Andreessen Horowitz.
Right.
It's also the idea behind some new research that a colleague at SMU Law, Christine Hurt, and I are working on. We're calling it Creating a Digital Non-Entity. It leans in heavily to some new judicial decisions out of Delaware that suggest that you could have joint ventures based entirely in contract without having to import general partnership law, because it's that general partnership law that really doesn't fit very well in the DAO context. We have this theory that we're still it's only half-baked at this point, but that we're still sort of working out, that the problem with DAOs and general partnership law broadly is that it doesn't really uphold the policy reasons for having general partnership law. The idea behind the general partnership statute is that it provides default terms that would give parties or participants in a general partnership, the partners, the terms that they would have put in their contract if they'd only thought about it. But part of that, other than the liability part, I should say, but part of that, and because of the sort of joint several liability that comes with the general partnership, is based on the theory that you have the right to choose your partners, right? So that you know who your partners are, because if they screw up, you're on the hook, right? And that's not a thing that happens in DAOs.
Right, it's absolutely the opposite, right?
And it just really doesn't fit very well. So anyway, we're continually working on that. And the idea is if you do it in contract, you don't have to file and you skip that part. And you still get the benefit of law and like the business law structures to protect you from things like the CFTC.
Can I backstep for a second? So as a financial advisor, many times I get approached to ask by my clients on corporate structures that are right for them, better with them, set up for them. And there are a stable of law firms that we use on a regular basis for estate planning versus for different types of law. Is there a specific criteria that you would recommend if somebody was looking at doing something like this? Is there specific firms either here in town or what would someone use? I like to say almost as a dating. Like, what are the things you would ask? What are some quick hits as to find out whether or not somebody actually knows what they're talking about?
If you're trying to find a lawyer?
If you're trying to find a lawyer that understands digital assets and or digital currency and or AI. In effect.
I mean, I would ask technical question and I would see how they use the words, right? I think vocabulary is a big tell in this space. The lawyers who will be creative with you and who will think creatively about your business needs, your structuring priorities, and really like the long haul of what you want your project to do, including in the code. They have to understand the code. Like, maybe they can't code it themselves, but they have to understand at a very technical level what is going on.
Right.
And so if they're calling something, for example, crypto asset, without distinguishing between like a native cryptocurrency and a token, right? But if they don't know that it's a layered technology, right now you already have very deep problems, So I think I'd just be like subtly paying attention to the terminology that they use when they talk about the technology. If they can talk to your developers and know what's going on, that is a very good sign.
Sure.
That's what I tell my students. I tell my students that they should learn the tech because the only way to keep their clients in the long haul is to be able to talk not with the GC's office or the lawyers, but to talk directly to the software developer.
Right.
And to be able to understand the business needs from their side and explain how the law fits or doesn't, right, what they're doing.
And how about as an investor? The GPLP model is successful in the private equity world, venture capital world for a reason. It's, you've got one person controlling the decisions where all the other passive investors are kind of happy to step back and do that. So for a passive investor that's used to the GPLP setup, what would you recommend for due diligence on whether or not they're investing in the right or putting their money with or putting their time in the right the right DAO?
I think I would want to, for DAO questions, I'd want to know what their strategy is for the structuring question. And if the answer is simply like we're illegal, I might want to push a little harder on that, unless they're planning to be an illegal entity in Utah, which kind of recognizes that now because they adopted the koala model law, right?
Yeah, all the little nuances that you're speaking of are the kinds of things that's like an average person would be like, well,
what?
Other than you bringing up that, that could work. Those are the hard parts. Is like you need somebody with that kind of mental flexibility. Yeah, what question is that?
Yeah, excellent.
So I would love to chat with you further about that at some point in the future. We're local. We're here in Richardson, you're SMU, right? Yeah.
Yes. And exactly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be
great. Yeah.
Great. So I think it's maybe a question I ask everybody, at least that has some policy stuff. So what, given your deep experience and kind of the intersection of blockchain and law, what is the key piece of legislation that we should, if we could all align ourselves behind? Like, what's the thing that we should be telling our regulators or our congressmen that we need to fix, we need to support?
So my answer is actually at the state level, not the federal level.
Okay.
But I was an advisor to the project that developed the 2022 amendments to the UCC.
Okay.
And although there's been some misunderstandings about a particular portion of those amendments, what those amendments do is clear the path to level the playing field in terms of private law and property rights for cryptocurrencies, so that we assume that it's true, but it's not actually true until the states adopt these amendments. That when you receive Bitcoin, for example, you're getting it free and clear, and it's yours, just the way a $5 bill would be yours.
Right, not encumbered with whatever it came from.
That's exactly right. And without the amendments, that's not actually true, unless you do some other structuring on the side. That would be really difficult to find out. And unless you want to do a search every time you accept Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency for payment, we really need all the states to adopt the 2022 amendments.
That's right.
That's the one.
Okay, well, that's actually board. Gary and I were talking about that at the mixer last night quite a bit. Were you talking about that with me too? Like this whole encumbrance idea? No, I think it was just Gary. Yeah, you'd already jetted by that. Yeah, that's because he runs the BitBlock Boom conference. Many people pay with Bitcoin. Yeah. He can't do a taint analysis on every payment that he gets to understand exactly where it came from.
I mean, he could. It would just take forever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not normal business.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's all the time that we have, but we'll talk later this week. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and being in the merge.
Appreciate
it. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.